Glad to see you guys here. We'll give you everybody a second to log on, make sure you can see the screen, and we'll get going. Well, good morning. Glad to see you guys are able to attend this meeting. We're very excited today to talk to you about the renewal application. That is a launch that is happening today, so you will have plenty of time to get your renewal application in to renew your TIA system by April 15th. My name is Teresa McGeehan. I am on the TIA team and I will be leading today's session. We also have other team members on the call to help answer questions. You can use the Q&A function to do that. And we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to everybody. As I mentioned, this is a webinar format, so it is being recorded. You will be able to access the recording in the district share file. Clover just put the link in the chat for this deck, and that we will have the recording posted later today. You will not appear in the recorded session, so it is being recorded, but all you will see is the slides and hear the voiceover. And then, like I mentioned, if you do have any questions, you can use the Q&A feature. The chat is not enabled in this particular session. Our objectives for this morning are one, to understand how the renewal application works in the TIA online portal. It is a portal-based application, which may or may not be something you're used to, depending on when you did your application last for TIA. We're also going to have as an objective to understand how to navigate the various tabs within the application, and notice that some tabs unlock questions or unlock other tabs, so we will get into that. And also we want you to be able to access and use the various resources that we have for you to help make sure that you have the most successful renewal process and application possible. So our agenda this morning, we're going to have welcome and objectives, which we're doing right now. We're going to talk about the purpose of the renewal application as well as the impact of TIA around the state. Then we'll go into the actual application itself and we'll dig into the renewal tab and the waiting tab. Those are two very important tabs of the application. Then we'll spend some time reviewing all the other additional application tabs, and we'll end with some resources and next steps. So first of all, I want to talk about the impact of TIA just in general. So way back when we started TIA in 2020, there were 35 districts. It was pretty small. And now in 24-25, there are 665 districts actually receiving funds, allotment dollars, which means over 42,000 teachers are designated, and that amounts to over $481 million in allotment. That's real money going out to real districts and real teachers in the state of Texas. So we're really, really excited about that. In terms of growth, as I mentioned, when we started, we had only 35 districts participating. We now have 809 districts participating, which is amazing. That represents 65% of the districts in Texas, well over half. And it includes 475 rural districts, which is about 64% of the rural districts in the state are all participating in TIA. So we're very excited about the growth of TIA over the last 5 years. In terms of renewal specifically, the purpose, there's three things we're trying to do with this renewal process. One, we want to make sure that districts are meeting current statutory requirements. Over the years, some of the things change, some of the rules might have changed or been adjusted. And so every 5 years, we do require districts to renew just to make sure that their TIA system is meeting current statutory requirements. So that's one reason. Secondly, we want to make sure that districts are reviewing kind of long-term holistically over the last 5 years. What does your data say about your system? What does your data validation report look like? What are areas that you can improve on? What are areas you're doing really well on? What are some things you could tweak? And so really using data to holistically review your system with that eye for continuous improvement of your TIA system. And lastly, the third purpose is to allow you to expand or modify. So during your renewal year, districts do not have to submit an expansion modification application and a renewal. The expansion process is part of the renewal application. So you can definitely expand to more teaching assignments if you don't already include all of them in your district. A renewal application is a place where you can go ahead and expand and include more teaching assignments or modify your system. Maybe you want to switch out assessment A and replace it by using assessment B. You can do that as well. So those are the three purposes of the renewal application. We're going to take a quick poll right now. Just want to see how recently has your district expanded. Some districts haven't expanded their system since they first applied 5 years ago. Some have expanded every year, and there's everywhere in between. So we're going to launch a poll here in just a second. If you would let us know, when was the last time your district expanded your TIA system? So if we go ahead and launch that poll, there it is. Thank you guys for participating in the poll. We got some good responses. Keep them coming. No right or wrong answers. Just want to see who's in the room. Okay, it looks like we have most people have submitted at least one application, expansion modification application, about 70% of y'all. Some have not changed, about 26 have not changed their TIA system since their very first application. And some have submitted an expansion, but it was not accepted. So a little bit of everything, and that's totally fine. Like I said, there's no wrong answers here. So thank you for participating in that poll. Just to kind of give us a sense of who's in the meeting today. So now we're going to talk about the TIA online portal. So first of all, accessing the portal. So it is live right now. Only one person per district has access to that, and that would be your TIA online portal primary account holder. That's a mouthful. Um, Access information was sent to all of your TIA contacts, letting you know who your main contact portal is. And so if you didn't get that email or you don't know who it is, we have some things for you to do. But by now, hopefully everyone knows who is their main primary account holder on the portal, and you got that email. Those went out on Monday. There's also a FAQ here, which we're not going to open up right now, but when you go back and do this deck later or listen to the webinar, you can click on that. It gives you all kinds of information about the online portal. If you don't know who your district's primary account holder is, or you need to change it, like maybe that person no longer works here, then you can just email the inbox, the TIA inbox, that's TIA@tea.texas.gov, and we will help you out to make sure you know who your online portal primary account holder is. So now I'm going to take a tour of the application itself. We're going to start with the renewal application. So there are required tabs to complete in this application. These are the required tabs. You'll also see when we look at the portal in just a second, there are some other tabs that are not required for renewal applications, like the stakeholder engagement tab, for example. Some of the tabs that you would have previously completed are already built into that renewal tab. So we want to minimize the extra work you have to do. So these are the required tabs that you will need to complete. Notice on the applicable student growth measure tabs, that means if your district is not using a particular student growth measure, then you don't have to complete that tab. And if it is using a particular student growth measure, like say portfolios, then you have to complete the portfolio tab. If you're not using portfolios, the portfolio tab will be locked and you do not have to complete it. So we're going to start with some general tabs first, and I'm going to take you to the online portal. FYI, it logs you out pretty quickly, about every 2 minutes, but that's not a problem. You just log yourself right back in. We're going to looking at Test District 9. So this is your welcome page. When you log onto the portal, it'll look like this, except it won't say Testing District 9. It'll say your district's name. And this is kind of an overview of the whole application. You'll see here on the left, these are all the tabs of the application. There's the welcome tab, which we're on right now. There's some reference files. There's district information. These are all the tabs. Notice some are locked. This district is not currently using portfolio, so the portfolio tab is locked. They're not using VAM. The VAM tab is locked, and so on. And the ones that are not locked are the ones that you need to complete. In this case, this district is using SLOs, so that's why the SLO tab is unlocked. So this is the welcome tab. It also gives you on the right-hand side, you can see the completion rates. So this particular district has not completed the district information tab. They have completed most of their renewal tab. They've completed all of their waiting tab and so forth. So once you get into here and you start doing your application, you'll be able to see what is your completion rate for all the various tabs that you are required to complete. The reference files tab over here is another great resource for you. It has over here previous system of records. So if you want to see, well, we did an expansion last year. Where is that? I won't have to go and look for it. It's right here in the portal. You can just click on it and find it, and it will tell you what your currently approved system of record is. There are also other options here. For example, if your district has a district created rubric and you don't use TTAS or Danielson or any of those, you have a district one, this will be a place where you can find it, as well as the crosswalk that walks your district created rubric against t-tests. So all these are just reference files that you can use as needed. Not all will be relevant to your district necessarily. There's also a district information tab. This is basically your contact information. Things change, staff change, so please make sure you have your all of your contacts, your backup contacts, letting us know things like if you have a technical assistance provider and so forth. That is the district information tab, pretty basic stuff. Then there's an application dashboard. This is just another way to look at that completion that I showed you earlier, a different way of looking at it. You can see again, the waiting tab in this case is complete. The renewal tab is almost complete and so forth. There are other tabs here that you do not have to complete, like the district support or stakeholder engagement. Those are locked. It's just another way of viewing what you have to do and what your progress is on that. So those are the general tabs I wanted to go over with you. There's also the renewal tab. Now, this is the first one that has like the real meat to it. I want to go into some detail with you on the renewal tab. So let's take a look at what that is. First of all, the purpose and the structure. There's two parts to the renewal tab. There's a data review and stakeholder engagement part. That's part A. And then there's your expansion and modification part. That's part B. So on the first part, we're asking you to look at your data and let us know where is an area that you think you need to improve with respect to your TIA system. And then how did you engage stakeholders to make sure that is going to be resolved in a way that will lead to more success in your district. So that's part A. And then part B, as I said, is the expansion modification. So part A looks like this. It's asking you to review your data validation report, identify areas for improvement, and describe the stakeholder input that you got. So in this example, this district said their number one problem is correlation of student growth scores to their teacher observation scores. They don't have a high correlation, and that's an issue for them. That relates to data check number one in the data validation system. That's check number one. And how they plan to improve it, they're going to partner with their ESC to really review data, search for root causes, and develop a plan to address and calibrating t-test scoring and evidence. So that's just a sample of what that could look like on part A. Part B is your expansion modification tab. This is where you can add new teaching assignments. You can make changes to your currently accepted teaching assignments, like maybe you want to swap out one assessment for another, things like that. And we're going to also ask you, how can you include teachers, all teachers in the future? How can you get to a place where eventually you will be able to include all teachers in your system if you don't already? So I'm just going to quickly go over back to our application and show you the renewal tab in real time. So again, here's part A, area for improvement, alignment between student growth scores and teacher observation scores. That aligns to data check number one. Here's their plan to improve. Their second area is skew. They have a lot of skew within their observation scores in this district. Some appraisers are way overinflating and some are way underinflating. And so that skew is an issue that corresponds to checks 4 and 5. Here's their plan to improve. So you'll be doing this exercise with your own data validation report, looking at what do you need to fix, which data checks does it correspond to, and how do you want to fix it. This district looked at interacted with these stakeholders, teachers, campus leaders, district leaders, and school board. This explains how they engage stakeholders. This is an example of the feedback they got from stakeholders and how they actually implemented it. In this case, this district wants to add CTE, world language, and fine arts teachers, and they all agree that they want to do a portfolio system. So this year, they're going to add portfolios. And so that's part A. Notice this green button right here. This means you can download this tab. So once you add all this stuff, and let's say you're not finished with your application, but you want to still have access to this without downloading it or share it with someone else, you can download this whole file and it will have part A, all of these answers downloaded. So every tab has that download feature, just to give you another way of looking at the information. Part B, is the district removing any eligible teaching assignments? In this case, no, they don't want to remove any. Do they want to add? Yes. Who are they going to add? They're going to add CTE, world language, and fine arts teachers. and so on. So these are pretty basic questions. It gives you a chance to change things. In this case, the district is not making any changes to currently approved teaching assignments. They could change it. Let's say they are. If they say yes, then you explain what changes are you going to make. In this case, this district wasn't making any changes, and so forth. So that is the renewal tab in a nutshell. In terms of planning for eligible teaching assignments, I wanted to point out a resource you can use. So some districts are ready right now to include all teaching assignments. They've got valid growth measures for every single teaching assignment that they have, and they're good to go. Awesome. Other districts are not there yet, which is also fine. But we want you to begin thinking about how could you get there? What could that look like? So this is a sample document you can download and use. Hopefully you'll find it helpful. And this is what it could look like when you fill it out. So this is Maple ISD. I changed the name, but this is a real district. They're a K through 8 district. And this has some planning for what they already have in their system as of today, what they want to add with their renewal in April 2026, and what they want to add in 27-28. So they're already planning ahead. In this case, they're already including K through 8 reading and 4 through 8 reading and math, using TPRI for this one. They're using STAR. With their renewal, they want to change and not use transition tables anymore. Instead, they want to use VAN. Great. So that's what they're going to do with their renewal. They're also going to be adding SLOs for all of these content areas because they were piloting it this year in 25-26 school year. Now they're ready to actually add it to their system formally in 26-27. This is just an example. And then for their K through 8 music, art, and technology teachers, they're just beginning to explore portfolios this year. They want to formally pilot them in 26-27 and then add to their system with an expansion application in 27-28. So this is just an example of what it could look like for how you could expand. It's great to show teachers, even if they're not included right now. There is a plan for them to be included, and here's what it looks like, and here's the growth measures that we're thinking of using. Great way to build stakeholder engagement amongst your teachers and figure out how you could expand over time. So I just wanted to point out that resource for you. Now we're going to move on to the weighting tab. The weighting tab is basically like the heart of the whole application, and it is the tab that unlocks other tabs. I'll show you what that looks like. All of this information is on the weighting tab, the teacher categories, which we'll talk about in a second, the teacher observation rubric, which one are you using and at what weight, which student growth measures are you using and at what weight, and any optional components that you choose to use at what weight. Some districts have been using student surveys as an optional component. That's just an example of a student survey. There are other optional components district can use, like professional development requirements, teacher mentorship, teacher attendance, all kinds of optional things. Or you could not do them. They're optional. That's totally up to you. But the weighting tab has all of this information on it. So we're going to talk about teacher category definition. This is very, very important. There is a specific way for how you can combine into the same category different teaching assignments. So different teaching assignments can be combined into the same category if they have the same teacher observation rubric and at the same weight, and they're using the same student growth measure at the same weight. When your student growth measure is a pretest post-test, you can combine all the teachers into the same category that use that same pretest, the same method for setting expected growth targets, and the same post-test. So for example, if all of your STAR tested teachers, you're using transition tables, all of your STAR tested teachers go in one category, even though some are elementary, some are middle school, some are high school, they're all together in the same category if they're using the same student growth measure at the same weight. Quick note here about being specific when listing teaching assignments. This is really important because we want to make sure it's really clear who is included, who's eligible, and who is not. So if you just say like gen ed teachers, we don't know who that means. If you just say fine arts teachers, maybe you mean to include your choir and your orchestra, but you're not ready to include your theater arts yet. Well, if you're not specific, we don't know who you mean. You don't know who you mean. Your stakeholders don't know who you mean. So be really, really specific about who your teaching assignments are. So here's an example of, we're going to go through this practice together a little bit. This is a real district's weighting tab. They had 6 teacher categories, starting with 1st to 3rd grade reading, 1st to 3rd grade math, and so on down to 6th through 8th grade science. They're using T-test rubric at 60% for all of them. And they're using NWA map assessment at 40% for all of them. Is this a good example? So just think to yourself for a few seconds and think back to what the definition is if they have the same teacher observation rubric at the same weight and the same student growth measure at the same weight, they should be one category. So hopefully, in looking at this, you can see that basically all of these, this is not correct. It should look like this. These are all one category because they all use t-test at 60%. They all use NVMAP at 40%. So this can really simplify your application. If yours looks like this, you can see how much simpler it is if it looks like this. It's also more accurate because they really are all using the same assessment and the same method for setting expected growth at the same weight. So here's one I'm going to give you a poll on this one. Check for understanding here. How many teaching categories should this be? So again, they have 6 listed, and I'll give you a hint. The answer is not 6. You can see what they're doing, what their teacher observation system is, what their student growth measure is, which assessment or student growth measure they're using. Take a second look at that, and in just a minute, we're going to put up a poll, and you're going to tell us how many teaching categories should this be. Clever, whenever you're ready, you can post the poll. Lots of interest coming in. That's fantastic. You can see we have some star pupils in this session. Most of you picked number 1. About 90% of you picked the answer 4, and that is the correct answer. And you can see why. All of these first 3 are using t-test at 60%, iReady at 40. That's one category. This star category is all by itself. They're the only one using star. You can't combine it with anything else. This category is using portfolios. They're the only one using portfolios. You can't combine that with anyone else. And this category is using SLOs, and you can't combine that with anything else. So this is just a sample of how you can think about how to do your teacher categories. When you're using your pre-test, post-test, be really careful to make sure you know whether the vendor sets expected growth targets or not. Some assessments come with growth targets. You can just use them. They come with the growth targets. You don't have to create them at the district level, like, for example, STAR or Renaissance Star, iStation, MAP. Many of these assessments come with growth targets. However, there are also a lot of assessments that are perfectly valid assessments, but they don't come with growth targets per se. For example, the Circle test for pre-K, AP exams, the ICEV exam, lots and lots of other assessments, or you can use them, but they don't come with growth targets. You would have to create growth targets locally. And there's wonderful information on our website and also in ShareFile about setting expected growth targets at the district level and what that looks like. So if you're interested in that, you can go back and view those webinars. But just a little word of caution, you can't combine things if they use different methods for setting expected growth. They can only be combined if they use the same method for setting expected growth. There is a handy dandy list right here that has on our website. It has all of the assessments, commonly used assessments that we know of, and it states what contents they cover. It also states whether they have expected growth targets or not. It's like a yes, no. So you can see at a glance, we want to use this test. Do they have growth targets? You can look it up at this link right here. So now we're going to go and look at the weighting tab itself on the portal so you can see what it looks like, see all of that good stuff that we just talked about. And that's okay. Log me out, but that's okay. We log back in. This will happen quite a bit. Don't worry about it. All right, so weighting tab. This is what the weighting tab looks like. So this district, testing district 9, here's their teacher categories. They're using the Danielson rubric at 50%. They're using a pre-test, post-test for this first category, which is STAR, and they're using STAR transition tables at 50%, and they don't have anything optional on this one. And you can see as we go down, they have pre-K, they're using Circle for that. They've got kindergarten, they're using TextKia for that. They've got 1st through 3rd grade reading, and so on. They have their C2E, languages other than English, and fine arts using SLOs, and so forth. So this is the weighting tab. Notice how if you click pre-test, post-test, you have to say the pre-test, who sets expected growth targets, in this case it's the STAR transition tables, and what is the post-test. So whenever you click pretest post-test, there's three questions you have to answer to make sure we have all that information. And we know that for example, with Circle, they don't have third-party growth targets. So luckily, this district selected district created growth targets, and that's great because that's what they would have to do if they're using the Circle test. So this is what the weighting tab looks like. Notice how SLOs over here are unlocked. That's because they clicked SLOs right here and they're using it. That's why that's unlocked. If they wanted to also use portfolios, let's say for an example, and I want to edit this and I want to add portfolios and I click save, I'm going to have to give it a little bit of weight. I could click save and it would unlock. Let's give this 40% and we're going to give portfolios 10%. I'm going to click save. And now the portfolios tab is unlocked. So if you're using it, the weighting tab is the nerve center. If you're using it and you complete your weighting tab correctly, it will unlock the tabs. And if you're not using it, it's going to be locked, so you don't have to mess with it. So just wanted to point out how that whole locking, unlocking piece works. Oh, oops. Okay, back to our deck. Okay, so there are also additional tabs that you need to complete. One of them is called the Eligible Teachers tab, and that is another really important tab. This is where you select the service IDs for the eligible teachers that you included on your weighting tab. It's pre-populated from the weighting tab, so all the categories that you put in the weighting tab will be on the eligible teacher tab. You can see, oh, category 1 was kindergarten, category 2 is pre-K, whatever it might be. You then will select the service ID, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second, that correspond to the new eligible teaching assignments that you want to add. You enter the respective category number for each service ID that you're adding, and then you can use filters to navigate between these teacher categories. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So if we go to the Eligible Teachers tab, it's over here. You can see it has from the weighting tab all of this district's categories, categories 1 through 6, and here's what they all are. And you can see that they have to select the service ID for each one. So if I go over here to filters and I'm going to see what did I put in for category 2. I'm going to select category 2 and I'm going to apply. And oh, category 2 is pre-K. So that one I already did. Let's say there's one that you haven't yet done. So let's say you did pre-K category 2. What you're going to have to do when you go in here originally is select the category of kindergarten, to select the category number that you're using for each eligible teaching assignment. So when you go in here, if I click by category 3, let's say, and I haven't yet done category 3, oh, I did do category. Category 3 is kindergarten, so that works out. We're going to go all through here. Every time you go in here, you need to add the category number that you're using, and that will give you make sure that the service ID, which is right here, is linked to the category number. So this whole tab is about linking service IDs to the category number that you have. Now I'm going to show you something interesting on the weighting tab. We go back here. You'll notice, you may have noticed this before, that they have a category over here, first to third grade reading, using iStation for their pre-test, iStation for their expected growth targets, and iStation for their post-test. And they also have first to third grade math, same thing, iStation, iStation, iStation. These should be one category, as we discovered before. These should be one category, not two categories. But notice how this one already has a category. It says I can't delete it. So here's how you do that. First of all, I'm going to add and math, first to third grade meeting and math over here, and save that. So now that I put first to third grade reading and math in this category, I don't need first to third grade math over here. So I want to delete this one. I don't need it anymore. But because it is tied to eligible teachers, I have to go to the eligible teachers tab first. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to find that first through third grade math. That's category 6. I'm going to filter by category 6. And I'm going to save that. So here's first through third grade math, first, second, third.
Category 6 is going away. I just moved them to category 4. So I'm just going to go in here and take out category 6 and change those all to category 4. Hit save. Now there are no teaching assignments tied to category 6. So category 6 has no records found, which is what we want. So now I can go back to the waiting tab and I can delete category 6, which I no longer need. So I'm going to delete it. Delete this category, yes. Notice how I'm not deleting any teachers because I already included them in category 3. So the first to third grade math teachers are still in the system. We just didn't need another category. So I just want to demonstrate that, especially with renewal districts. Sometimes your original application didn't combine things and now you can clean it up and you might need to delete a teacher category. So that's how you do that in the eligible teachers tab. And again, here's the steps to do that. I'm not going to go over these. We just discussed these. But if you want to go back and read this, I know I'm going kind of fast. Just want to give you a taste. But hopefully you can go back, follow these steps, and you'll be able to delete categories if you need to do so. Eligible Campuses tab is the next tab I'm going to talk to you about. And that one is pretty basic. It's where you just select the campuses that you want to be included in your TIA system. Some districts include all of their campuses, some districts don't. That's up to you. It's a local decision. Just a quick word that when you look at your eligible campuses tab, make sure you're looking at all of the campuses that are assigned in your district. There may be some that you didn't realize were actually assigned to your district. Maybe there's a JJAP locally, but you didn't realize it was tied to your actual district or something like that. Make sure you check if you want to include those or not. All districts can include all or some campuses. That's totally up to you. That is a local decision. Then we have a teacher observation tab. The teacher observation tab is where you're going to tell us about what does your teacher observation system look like? What observation rubric are you using? How are you going about calibrating your appraisers? How do you look at skew? How do you look at the comparison of student growth to teacher observation to see if they're aligned? If they're not aligned, what do you do about it? Things like that. Those are all parts and questions on the teacher observation tab, which is required for you to complete. Then there's student growth tabs. And as I mentioned, you only have to complete the student growth tabs for the student growth measures that you are actually using in your system. There are 4 basic options for how to use a student growth measure. You can use a pretest post-test, you can use SLOs, you can use portfolios, or you can use VAM. As I mentioned, tabs will unlock based on what you selected on the waiting tab. Some student growth measure tabs may be pre-populated for you. Let's say you did an expansion application last year and you added SLOs last year. All of your answers for your SLO will already be pre-populated for you. So you can some of them will be pre-populated. If you haven't changed your system in a long time or in several years or have never changed it at all, those will not be pre-populated. You'll have to go ahead and answer the student growth measure questions for what you are doing. It just depends. Every district's a little bit different depending on when they updated their application last. So all of these are options. For the pretest, post-test, as a quick review, there's lots of resources out there in the share file about the various growth measures and how they work. Pretest, post-test actually has 4 different flavors of pretest, post-test. You can use, for example, a test that has growth measures. You can use a third-party test that doesn't have growth targets set in there. You can use a district-created test. There's all different kinds of options for how pretest, post-test could work. If you want more information on that, highly encourage you to look at the pretest, post-test webinar that's in the district share file. Then we have the spending tab. Spending tab, this is the show me the money tab. How are you spending the money and is it in alignment with statutes? So first of all, the distribution of funds, we do have that 90-10 rule, as we call it. 90% of the compensation, 90% of the allotment dollars must be spent on teacher compensation. Up to 10% can be kept for the district to support TIA. Quick note there. You need to be very specific when you explain how your district is using that 10%. It can't just be support TIA and that's it. It has to be specific. We're using it to buy an assessment, to add an eligible teaching assignment. We're using it to fund a TIA person to implement successfully our TIA system and head up the continuous improvement, things like that. Things that are really obvious what you're doing. It can't just be admin support. That would not be approved. It needs to be specifically how are you spending that 10% to support TIA.
Then there's other parts about the approval of your spending plan, what happens if teachers move before the payout happens, and national board situations. Again, there's wonderful webinars on spending tab. There's exemplar spending plans you can look at if you're interested. Highly recommend you go back and look at those if you didn't haven't had a chance yet to look at the spending tab information. There's lots of great information as well as some sample exemplar plans that you can look at as you complete your spending tab. There's also a great resource. We're going to switch gears right now and talk a little bit about how do you know if you're doing this well. So we have an application scoring rubric. It literally tells you everything that you need to know in order to get full readiness. So here's a little screenshot of it. The weighting tab. This is the weighting tab part of it. There's an application rubric for all of the tabs. Here's the component, and here's what full readiness looks like. So when you're doing your application and you're writing your answers, you can look at the rubric and you can see, does our answer meet this full readiness bar or not? In other words, you could basically pre-score your application yourself before you ever submit it. Highly recommend you use this tool when you get ready and you start writing your answers. Go ahead and look at it against this rubric to make sure that you have full readiness in your answers. It's going to be, I think, really, really helpful for you guys to use. And it's so helpful that we're going to spend a little bit of time right now practicing how to use that. So this particular example, we're looking at the scoring rubric for the pre-test, post-test tab. Option one. Option one, remember I said there's four different ways to use pretest, post-test. So option one is a third-party test that has third-party growth targets and a third-party post-test. So that's option one. So option one has very specific criteria about what meets full readiness for pretest, post-test. Option one, we're just looking at question number one. There's multiple questions, but we're just looking at option one, question one. So here's what the scoring rubric says. This is literally the language from the scoring rubric. I cut and pasted it. It says the district explains how each assessment aligns to the standards and content covered and answers questions for all assessments that are in this category. So that's what the scoring rubric is looking for. That's what the team that scores these applications are going to be looking at, this exact criteria. So in this district's example, Marigold ISD, they're using three option one assessments. So three third-party assessments that have third-party growth targets: Renaissance Star, M-Class Reading, and STAR. That's what they're using. And here's their answer. I'm going to give you a minute to read about what they wrote. Renaissance Star, what they wrote about STAR. Look at what they have to do. And I'm going to ask you to do another poll here real quick. Does this meet full readiness? So again, look at what the scoring rubric is asking for. Look at their answer. Meets full readiness, yes or no? The answer's trying to come in. That's great. Keep them coming. Looks like we've got a trend already going here. Okay, so it looks like we have about the vast majority of you guys have picked no as the answer, and no is the correct answer. Now, this is a little bit tricky because these answers are actually really good. The answers are very good for Renaissance Star. It talks about why they chose it. It talks about how supportive stakeholders, that's a great answer, and so is the STAR answer. But there's something missing. They have to answer for all assessments used. They're using one, two, three. Their answer only has one, two. So this is an example of how this district could go back and look and say, oh, you know what? We didn't answer anything about M-Class. We got to fix that. So the good news is they can fix it. Just add in the blurb about M-Class. Now they answered the question for all of the assessments in category one in option one of pretest post-test. So they can fix it, and now it meets full readiness. So it wasn't that they didn't have good answers. It was that they were missing answer for an entire category of tests that they were using, and that can't be full readiness. It has to be that the district has really been thoughtful about all of the assessments they're using, so that would be a way for them to fix it. So there's lots of examples of how you can use a scoring rubric. Similarly, in your district, once you get ready to start writing answers, go ahead and look at that scoring rubric and you can see, hopefully you can catch something like if you accidentally left off an assessment, you're going too fast or there was a fire drill or whatever happened, you can go back and fix it. And so now we're going to switch gears a little bit and we're going to have another team member talk to us about, Lariah is going to join us from our strategic compensation side of our TIA team to talk to you a little bit about enhanced TIA and the enhanced TIA tab. So Lariah, thank you and take it away.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and good morning, everyone. We're going to take a moment to talk about and introduce the new Enhanced TIA application because you'll notice that you have a new tab in your portal on the left-hand menu, and it is currently locked, but it is visible to everyone. So just so you know what to expect. Next slide, please. For those of you who aren't aware, Enhanced TIA is a new designation available to districts that have established a strategic compensation system based on performance. So this designation unlocks an additional 10% in TIA funds to support strategic compensation systems. As I mentioned, the Enhanced TIA tab is visible under the District Support tab in the portal, but it's currently locked to all users. So if your district is not pursuing Enhanced TIA at this time, you can completely disregard and ignore this tab. It won't affect your application. If your district submitted a letter of intent for enhanced TIA this fall, you'll gain access on February 11th. Please also keep in mind that the application deadline for enhanced TIA will be April 15th, 2026. Districts who submit a letter of intent should also keep an eye out for our enhanced TIA application training session that'll happen in February. Next slide, please. So if you're wondering whether applying for enhanced TIA designation makes sense for your district, here's a quick visual to highlight the key criteria for building an HB2 compliant strategic compensation system. These criteria include universal teacher eligibility for TIA designation, performance-based teacher and campus administrator compensation, no across-the-board salary increases, and strategic staffing that places highly effective teachers at high-needs campuses. If your district uses an HB2 compliant strategic compensation system or plans to implement one by the 2026-27 school year, please email us at tia@tea.texas.gov for more information about enhanced TIA. And then one more slide. Also, if you are and you want to learn more about building a HB2 compliant strategic compensation system, please feel free to join us for this upcoming webinar that's happening on January 28th. With that being said, I'll pass it back to Teresa to go over next steps.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, our next steps. So your next steps are engage stakeholders and complete your system renewal planning. So what do you want to add? What do you want to change? How are you going to look at your data? Where's your plan for continuous improvement based on your data validation reports and or your local district data? Complete that planning process. Next, make sure you can access the portal application. I did a quick run through today of what it looks like, so hopefully you have some familiarity of it and you will be able to access it yourself and look at those tabs and look at the functionality, the purpose, what unlocks what, and so forth. Then make sure you complete all required tabs. So depending on what your district is doing, you should be able to see which tabs are required for you to complete. And you can use that tracker to see, oh, you know what, I forgot one question that's not 100% complete yet. You can't submit it until it's 100% complete. And then speaking of submitting, don't forget to actually submit it, which the deadline is April 15th at 11:59 p.m. A quick word on that. You can make changes up until April 15th. So let's say your district is ready, you're a go-getter district, you have your application ready to submit on March 1st. And then on April 1st, you decide, you know what, we're not going to use assessment A anymore. We want to switch to assessment B. We want to change that. You can go right back into the portal, change it on the waiting tab, answer the questions on the pretest post-test tab, and change and edit as much as you want. And we'll only look at the last one that you did. That's the one in existence in the system at 11:59 p.m. is the one that will be scored. After that time, you can't make any changes. So if you want to submit or you realize you left something off, you can do that up until the actual deadline itself. Also wanted to take a minute to give you some resources. So Regional ESCs, all 20 regions in the state of Texas have entire staff that are dedicated to helping their respective districts with TIA. Super excited about this. This probably was not in existence. I know it wasn't in existence at the scale it is now back when y'all first applied for TIA in 2021. But now we have a lot of support from our ESCs. Every ESC has support. There's a list right here. And again, this deck, this is a live link. When you download it later, you can find this list. It's also on the TIA website. If you don't know who your person is in your region that helps with TIA, you can look at the TIA contact list there and find out who to contact in your region. They have all kinds of resources to help you with, including the option of previewing your application before you submit it. So let's say you want to have another set of eyes on it before you click submit. You can have your ESC do that for you. Would recommend you do that early. If they're an ESC and they get 100 applications at 10 p.m. on April 15th, likely they're not going to be able to review them. But if you give them, say, a month ahead of time and you want to have that review process, you can get feedback and fix anything that needs to be fixed. That is a service that they can provide you, as well as lots of training opportunities, lots of lunch and learns, lots of brown bags, all kinds of information about TIA. So if you haven't yet leaned into your ESC, highly recommend that you do that. There are also specialized hubs that give specific support for specific things. For example, there's an SLO and portfolio hub. So if your district is thinking, wow, we really do want to add portfolios for our fine arts teachers, for example, we don't know how to do that. That would be a great option to reach out to that particular hub. They've got lots of resources for you to help you be successful with that. We also have office hours where you can come and ask any questions. It's totally open. It's not like a webinar like this where you get lots of information and slides. It's really just a time to come with questions. Our team is there to simply answer your questions. So we're very excited about that. Some of you have been coming all year long already. Just as a reminder, I'd love to have you and get your questions answered. And then the resources, we've already talked about many of these. The scoring rubric we talked about. There are also application exemplar answers. We didn't get into that today in this webinar, but that link again is live. You can go and look at what is an exemplar answer. How do I know what a good answer actually looks like? Click on that link and there's lots of examples of exemplar answers that you can use to kind of spur your thinking in your district as you craft your answers for your application and your system. And then, of course, there's that planning for eligible teaching assignment document that I showed you for how you can plan 1 year out, 2 year out, 3 years out, so that down the road you can include all teachers in your system and what that could look like. Those are the resources we have for you. We do have a survey. I'd love for you to take a survey really fast. It's about a 2-minute survey, so please, please, please take that. I will use every single bit of that feedback. We actually have 2 more of these webinars coming up next week, one for new districts to TIA and one for expansion. So I will use whatever feedback y'all have for me to hopefully make the ones next week even better, stronger. Always want to have an eye towards continuous improvement to make sure we're giving you what you need. So if you would please take 2 minutes and do this quick survey. The link is in the chat. It should take you, I say, only about 2 minutes or so. So please go ahead and do that before you log off of this meeting. And that is all I have for you today, other than asking you to complete the survey. Sure hope that this was helpful for you and that you have enough of a crash course on the portal and what it looks like that you'll be able to navigate it successfully in your district.
And Teresa, maybe while they're completing this survey, Deborah's been doing a great job responding to questions in the Q&A, but there's still a couple if you wanted to see if there was any that might be good for the greater good.
Okay, great. Let me look at that. Do we renew every year? No, every 5 years. Renewal is required every 5 years. So you can expand every year, you can modify every year, but it's not going to be required to renew every year. Renewal is only once every 5 years. And then I see a question from Emilio about the entire application process. Renewing districts complete the application. It's not starting from scratch necessarily. It's required tabs based on what you're using. And then some of the additional tabs that were on your original application, like the stakeholder engagement tab, the district support tab, those are not required for renewal. So it's kind of a truncated version of application, but it does have a refresh for you to let us know what you're doing in terms of teacher observation, your spending, and your student growth measure tabs, just to make sure that everything is up and currently meets statutory requirements. Let's see. Attestations, yes, attestations are required for all applications. So that is something you can find on the portal. Let's see, what else has not been answered? I think the rubric only addresses new systems in terms of system engagement. No, the rubric actually includes, it's the same rubric. The statutory requirements are the same for renewal districts and expansion, like the requirements for full radius on pretest post-test are the same, whether it's a new district, an expansion district, or a renewal district. So the rubric is for everyone. And there's also a piece of the scoring rubric that's specifically for renewal anyway, that gives you information about that renewal tab itself that's specific only to the renewal application. Everything else, the statutory tabs are the same for all application types, whether it's new, expansion, or renewal. These are great questions. When you receive notification of application is approved, that is a great question as well. Let me show you something on the portal. I can show you what that looks like. So there is a on your let's see. Okay. Let's see, is it on the welcome page? There's a place when you start your application and you get ready to submit, the submit application button. It won't let you submit yet because it's not finished. But when you do submit, you can download an application into Excel, or you can do a PDF, and it will let you know how far along you are in terms of your completion rate, so that you will be able to track that. And you also will be able to see where, if it's been submitted, if it's been scored, if you need to rescore there. Once it gets submitted, there'll be buttons that you can track in the portal itself. You can log on and see if it's been scored. In general, we score the applications by the end of May. You'll find out whether your district passed in round one of scoring, which is the end of May. If for some reason your district did not pass in round one, you have a chance to address the feedback that we'll give you and resubmit in June, and then you'll know by the end of July whether you pass. So that's the general cadence: is you submit in April, you find out at the end of May if you passed. If you didn't, you have a second chance to resubmit by the end of June, and then we'll have final approvals, final acceptance rates by the end of July. Renewal is due April 15th, 2026. Let's see, is there anything else here? Is there an option to add a recently built campus in the campus tab on the portal? Yes, so you can add, if it doesn't show up as a campus yet because it's just new, and when you click on your eligible campuses tab, that new campus isn't there yet, you can just email us and let us know. And once it becomes live, it's a real campus, it'll be included, especially if you're including all campuses already. It will just automatically include new campuses. And the reverse is true. If a campus got closed and it's no longer tied to your district because it closed down for whatever reason, then that will automatically roll off. Okay, I think there's some specific questions in here about specific service IDs. For those, I would recommend you email the TIA inbox, and we can get our data team to answer those specifically about your pre-K service ID. I think that's from Kelly. You can email the TIA inbox, tia@tea.texas.gov, and we can make sure we look up your specific district and see what deals with that particular service ID. Complete about the June resubmission. Yes. So the application process, there is a submission date of April 15th. All applications are due April 15th by 11:59 p.m. And then they will be scored by the end of May. After May, if you did not get accepted, you will get lots of feedback as to why you were not accepted. You can fix all of those things, resubmit by the end of June, and then your application will be rescored, and you will find out by the end of July whether that application was accepted or not. So initial round one, we call it, is May 31st, or before that, end of May-ish. And then round two, if you didn't pass on the first part, you have a chance to resubmit by the end of June. Okay, let's see, is there anything that hasn't yet been answered? Looks like.
I think there's a spending question in there about teachers to not retain their payment. Looks like Deborah's answering that one already. Anything else? What is the point of setting weights per components? Oh, that's a great question. So it depends. How you weight your system will determine whether teachers earn a designation in your system or not, whether they qualify for a designation in your system or not. So, for example, if you have 50-50 weighting of student growth and teacher observation, that might be that end up that a teacher does not get designated for whatever reason. But if you had 60-40, if the 60% weight, see their teacher observation was really high and their student growth was high, but not as high. But on average, because you're weighting that more, that teacher would qualify and vice versa. So the weights have a lot to do with who qualifies for who you want to put forth for designation in your district. This is a great area for stakeholder engagement. What do teachers think would be the right weight for the components? Because how you weight things will affect who gets put forth for designation versus who does not get put forth for designation. And there's a great webinar about how do you determine that. It's in the share file. It's also, you can link it on the TIA website about determining designations. What does that look like? And when you go into that webinar, there's lots of practice and you can see, oh, you know what, if I weight it this way, it comes out with this answer. If I weight it the other way, it has this other answer. You can kind of play around. There's a whole designation tool that you can use. So highly recommend you look at those resources. I think it'll really get you the answers that you wanted about how weighting works. Will there be more information on the fourth destination accomplished? So that is there. Yes, there will be, but that is not going to be in effect until next year. So for this particular year, there's still just the three recognized exemplary master designations. Starting in 26, 27, there'll be an opportunity to have that fourth level. That's when that will kick in. That is not available yet, but there'll be lots of more information about that coming once it becomes closer. Regarding VAM, do we have to adjust to mirror the 33%? So um, you can look at VAM, you can look at the VAM ratings and look at your district ratings and make any kind of adjustments you want. That's a local decision. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. It has to be something that you can look at. We also have a lot of information about VAM and a training on VAM that you can go to and get more information on our website about that. But the quick answer is it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It's a guiding look. Like if your data says one thing and Texas VAM is totally different, maybe there's something wrong in your system you need to look at or fix. You can make adjustments accordingly, but it doesn't have to be exactly mirroring. Fantastic questions, y'all. This is great. Data capture year. If you're reapply, if you're renewing, then next year is a full data capture year and there are no appraisal waivers allowed. Excellent question. That is correct. You have a new formal data capture year after your renewal system. Um, I'm not sure about, we are in data capture. Do we need to figure out which teachers will be at the new level when we submit in October? New level, by new level, I'm guessing you mean accomplished? You want to, I would wait until we have more information about that new designation and when you can put teachers forth for that new level, that accomplished level. Definitely you should be collecting data on all of your eligible teaching assignments right now. And then once we have the information about all four, which teachers fall into which category, that will happen once you have your data back. But in terms of collecting data, you should be collecting data in real time for every single teacher in eligible teaching assignment as much as you can, so that you can then put forth as many as possible for designation in October. And just a quick note, your October designation that you will put forth in October of 2026 will be based on this school year, which is prior to your renewal. So right now, you're collecting data in 25-26, and that will be what you submit in October 2026. Meanwhile, your renewal application, let's say you add new teachers, those new teachers you add via your renewal, you will not be submitting those for data submission in October 26 because they have to have a full data capture year first, and then you will submit them in October 2027.
We are right at time. If you have questions that did not get answered specifically, we will make sure we get back to you, and or you can email the TIA inbox and we'll get the specific, like there's some specific questions about VAM and things like that. We will make sure that the people on our team who are the experts for those things are able to answer those if you didn't get your question answered today. And really quick, there's one about waivers. So during a data capture year, teachers who are ineligible teaching assignments can't be on a waiver. So let's say you have 10 kindergarten teachers in your district. Kindergarten teachers are an eligible teaching assignment. During your data capture year, no kindergarten teachers can be on a waiver. If you're not including your Spanish 1 teacher in your system yet, then your Spanish 1 teacher can be on a waiver. In general, we recommend using waivers sparingly, because if you have too many waivers going on, then you may not have enough data. It could have effects on your data validation process. So we should recommend you use appraisal waivers sparingly, but you can use them. The exception is you cannot use them during your data capture year for teachers who are ineligible teaching assignments. So that is the end of our time here together. It's right at 11 o'clock. I want to make sure I honor your time. If your question didn't get answered, please come to office hours and or send an email to the TIA inbox and we will get back to you. We want to make sure you are as successful as possible. Hopefully as many of you as could possibly take the survey took it. We look forward to your feedback. Thank you so much for your time today. Have a great rest of your day.